welcome in studio, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank
We're happy to be
you.
back, aren't we, Latoya? We just had a good laugh on our way up.
Thank you for being here. Listen, did you see our last clip from the last episode?
I did.
Ooh.
This conversation needs to be had.
Yeah,
People are loving that we're here, we're raw, we're unfiltered, and we're giving them what they need to hear. Or we're saying what people might not want to say. And you know what I'm saying? On camera. So here we are, and I'm grateful to you. Today, we spoke about it last week. Today, policies are not paperwork. They look good when inspections come around. They look good when we write our academic plans and we get that go-ahead to open our nursery settings. And then the reality sets in when parents are complaining, when safeguarding becomes an issue in the nursery school. So between the two of you, you've been veterans in the industry. What are the 3 primary policies that you think any nursery setting should be focusing on right now as we prepare for school opening?
From my point of view, I'm huge on safeguarding. And when I mean I'm huge on safeguarding, it's my passion. So when somebody says to me, what's your passion in early years? Like what's the subject that you love the most? I'd say safeguarding. So one of the policies should be safeguarding. Safeguarding is
But that's it's broad.
But
right?
there's so many things
there.
that fit into safeguarding.
Yes.
Right? So safeguarding is not just your 18 areas of indications or your 7 or 8 areas of abuse or anything. That's all good to know. You will go on and you will see all of these things, but what about your practice? So practice is really important. So when you actually train your staff on safeguarding, it should be in the environment, what it looks like in your environment, first of all. So it could be something like your the doors that you walk into, they are accessed, right? Access card.
Yeah.
I've had to think about that. So they are access card. That's one of that. Why would you do that? Because you're not letting anybody in.
Mm-hmm.
And when anybody enters
at the same time, you're not letting anyone out.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
And that. So then that comes for your gates, the type of doors that you install in the nursery, also a thing. So when I do safeguarding and when I train safeguarding with members of staff, I show them the environment. I show them, look, this door has been put in place for this reason. There's a strategy behind everything that we're doing. So there's so many things. This is such a long topic that we can talk about, and safeguarding is its own topic of its own. But safeguarding for me is definitely number 1. Secondly, I would say that employee code of conduct or employee.
So your HR practices.
HR practices.
Yeah.
Yes. So HR practices are really, really important as well. So those policies are in place, and then policies for parents. What I would say, Mel, though, is that you said that we've got policies for inspection, we've got policies for compliance, and all of these things. But policies are also written with so much jargon, right? And let's face it, let's give some facts to this. In the UAE, we're super diverse. Our teams are so diverse, and English is their second language, most of their second languages, right? So in order for them to understand the policy, if you're giving somebody a piece of paper with so much jargon in it, they're not going to understand it. And I've actually put this theory to test with my members of staff. And I've said, can you read this policy? Can you read this policy? And then I gave them markers and I said, highlight what you don't understand. And one of the policies, which was super simply worded, they said, oh, miss, we understand this. And I was like, and then I saw a whole bunch of highlighted, and it was all the jargon. Okay. So are we going to have 2 types of policy? Are we going to have 1 type of policy? Or are we going to have something that says that we live these policies?
We need policies that work for everyone on our team. We need policies that work for the families, policies that work for our teams, and policies that work for our managers that are actually implementable in the nursery setting, right? Latoya?
Yeah, I think obviously safeguarding hits the top. I think child behavior one is a very big one, because that's a lot of people struggle with that, and how that's managing your classrooms, that's managing your nurseries and staff. You need to have strategies and things in place. So giving them a format, what does managing behavior look like to you? And if you have a foundation for that, that the staff come into your nursery, whether they're new, they come with different strategies, because as you said, we come from different cultures and everything like that. So it's even more vital in the UAE because everybody comes with a different perspective of what that looks like. So behavior one is definitely one. I will also say even staff well-being and what that looks like. As we've mentioned before we talked about staff not even having a staff room, the space, and how does that look? A staff member that comes in, like I have endometriosis, so I've in my time, I've had to have time off and things like that. How do you manage that person that constantly has time off because they genuinely have a medical condition to someone who's just genuinely being ill,
Unprofessional at times.
Yeah.
Yes.
So having that well-being and managing that as well for the manager to understand how to manage well-being of the staff and the different scenarios, planning ahead, because you can plan for some things. You know, if someone has a death in their family, how are you going to deal with that?
So your HR policies, again, right? But now what I've seen in practice is that we have this beautiful document. I normally review my policies during the summer. I spend the time during the summer and I bring the team. And what's great for most nursery settings is that we work through the summer and we have 2 teams alternating. So a wonderful opportunity to bring the teams with you along for the ride to actually write those policies and see how they work. So during the year, I make notes, in the policies and say, okay, this is jargon, didn't necessarily work for the team, or this didn't necessarily work for the parents, or this had many questions throughout the year when I had parent complaints, etc. So during the summer break, we review those policies and then we bring them back for that one crucial week of inset training.
And say, read this, guys, and sign this.
Yeah, and then that's it for the rest of the year.
I think that's where it falls apart.
That's the biggest issue.
I agree with you.
Information for them to take in, like you're saying. Not everybody is a native English speaking, so it's a lot of information for them to take, and then to decimate that information and articulate it into their practice. How do we get it right?
I think it lives throughout the year, and it's not your summertime and it's not your January time. It's a time all over the year. And what I see is sometimes when I make policies all the time, and I see gaps from myself too. So I reflect on that. And again, I love the fact that you said involve your staff, involve their ideas into your policies, and see where you can place those ideas as well. And also throughout the year, you might have a incident or something that's happened or an experience that's happened. And you think, okay, we don't have a policy, or we do have a policy for that, but it's not mentioned inside of the policy, or it's not been, there's no expectation of it. So that's when you would go back as a leader, you would go back to your policy and you would look into it and you would change it, you would tweak it, but you would then also, so when I do stuff like that, we had a WhatsApp group for the whole nursery, so the whole nursery team, every single person, their role, they were on this group. And what we do is I'd always say, hey guys, something in our policy has been tweaked, and then I actually take out the paragraph that I've written and I put it in the group, and then I say, please just give me a thumbs up if you've read it. Then again, it's not the only portal of communication for that. So what we do is then we put it in the staff room as well, and we put it on the notice board, and we say, guys, we put it on the notice board as well. Whenever you've got a chance, have a read. Okay. So we give them about 2 to 3 weeks in order for them to have a look. And then management is on the floors. So we don't sit in an office. We sit on the front desk. We usually go into the classroom. Yeah. We take off our shoes. We get dirty. Okay. So, and that's a practice that I believed in my environment, because when I did that, or when any of the senior team did that, the staff would feel, okay, this is the practice that we're supposed to reflect, right? We're giving them, we're role modeling. Right? We're role modeling what we want our practice to be like. And as Latoya said, people come from different environments, right? And I always put the whole, when I'm from the Asian culture, right? So I always say that when a daughter-in-law moves into the house of the in-laws, all of a sudden it's like, you have to do things my way now, okay? And it's something similar to that in all nursery environments, because when somebody comes from a different nursery, they have a different perspective on things, especially behavior. Like somebody will say, oh, we believe in quiet time, on the chair, isolated. But that's time out, right? They've just given a glorified name to it. And I
Which
would be
would
like,
be fine in their. It's not fine, but I mean, in their wherever they come from, that is
because
how
that's what
they've done it.
leadership has relayed to them, right? That's what leadership has reflected. So they're going to believe, oh my gosh, this is the right practice. And some of the times, and you I don't know, Mel, if you in your team that happens, but your team do respect you, right? They try, and if Miss Fatima or Miss Mel or Miss Latoya has said something, it's like the holy grail, right? They don't question you. So I always say to my team, girls, I need you to question, right? And I also put them to the test for that. So one time,
I hear an opportunity, excuse me, Fatima, I hear an opportunity here to say, and we've mentioned this previously, that because we come from diverse backgrounds, because the culture that you have as a professional is not necessarily the culture that exists in the setting that you're assimilating to, that you need to be as an individual, as an educator, as a leader, you need to spend time reflecting on your personal practice.
100%.
You need to spend time informing your personal practice. So whereas in some nursery settings where, or maybe cultures, let me say, in some cultures where physical punishment is acceptable, in the UAE, it is not. But you would not necessarily know that just coming here. So you need to go and spend some time reading the labor law, reading the cultural law that exists in the country, understanding the culture and the laws around education as well. So as much as we are speaking to leaders this morning, writing those policies, the onus and responsibility is on the team member as well, because you bring yourself as a professional to the workplace. It is not my responsibility as the leader to constantly be upskilling you and constantly informing how you think. I would love for you, like you're saying, question what we are doing, bring a reflection and say, this policy is not working. It is not working for us. It is not very clearly articulated. You've put all this jargon in here, but actually we don't know what it means. So we need active practitioners. You need to be active in your work. You need to be active in the culture, and you need to be active in your professional leveling up.
I think as well, you have to, it goes even beyond the classroom, because when we're talking about culture, I think you need to learn each other's cultures.
Yes.
It's most important. So if I give an example, something small, back in the UK, as Black and Asian, we have blue Mongolian spots, right? Which is a bruise that you have, and it looks like a massive birthmark, or it looks like a bruise. So back in the UK, it was like, oh wow, like this child has been hit. And if I wasn't there, because I was the only ethnic minority at the time in my company, and if I wasn't there, they were ready to proceed that this child has been hit, because it was all up the back of that thing. And I was like, no, I couldn't categorically say it wasn't, but I was like, that is a perspective.
And there's a possibility.
There's a possibility. Let's get someone to just double check that this is a blue Mongolian spot. So things like that, understanding, if you start to understand other people's cultures, you understand that there's different things, or even language. We're talking about physical abuse in some Black cultures. They say, I beat the child. It doesn't mean they're physically beating the child, but it sounds so strong, right, to someone else in another culture. So again, spending each other's time with each other and the parents, that the cultures you have coming in. So getting to understand that will get you to, again, it's a form of learning.
I think there's a wonderful opportunity also for that inset training. Yes. That we're not just so focused on the policies itself, because let's face it, that week is all about getting those policies nailed down. These policies you've mentioned as the primary, that week we are really hammering those policies. We really, really. So if we spend some time now we're planning for the opening, for the new academic year. If we spend some time to bring in some cultural awareness, where we actually
think
get
that's so
to know
important.
the members in our teams.
So we
This
do
could be
that.
valuable.
I did that every year. So that was one of my days, inset days. So one of the days that we had for our training, we had a whole week of training, and I actually brought another company on for well-being and also cultural differences, and to learn other people's cultures. And I loved the way they did it. They bought they had an app, and in the app it said, from your country, which food comes from your country, or what dress comes from your country, and you can actually upload it, and then it comes on a big screen so everybody can see. It was Steph and Afnan that did it for me from Advance. So and that this is something that I believe in. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is what I wanted. I mean, I was wondering how they were going to do it, and this was a perfect opportunity. And it was an hour of talk. It was hour of communication. It was hour of learning, actually more than an hour, I'd say, of learning about everybody's cultures, about where everybody was from. We had some tears in there too, because we spoke about how the culture was different towards like behavior and development of children, and how a certain member of staff had was so engrossed in learning about early childhood, because their childhood hadn't been fantastic. So and they realized that this was abuse. They realized that these things were actually not okay to happen to them. So there's a lot of things that you can do. There's a lot of fun things you can do in these environments. Your policies can come to life through fun, through different portals. I do different types of training. And I love practical. And I know that everybody in my environment, when I did a survey, said that they learned better practically.
Yes.
Rather than reading or somebody talking at them.
Yes.
So and the quizzes are fantastic.
So it doesn't have
we
to
have
be this
so much
laborious,
fun. No.
let's sit and read these
Not at all.
policies, right?
When I do safeguarding training, in between, like every 15 minutes, a quick pop-up on the screen, and it's a buzz question, and it's a yes or no, and then you just hear the room go yes, no. But again, they don't realize it's a simple quiz, but it's refresher. It's a refresher in regards to safeguarding. And then it just gives a pause from this is what you need to know. And it's just, again, let's bring it back to you. What's your understanding? And then if it comes into a conversation.
I love these practical tools you're giving us.
So another thing, sorry, Mel, to cut you off. Another thing I do is I do quizzes throughout the year, like all the time, like so people are like on their toes. When I say, hey guys, we've got a quiz. Here's your quiz. And that quiz informs me of where the knowledge is lacking. Where if somebody hasn't answered something which was obviously to be known, meant that they needed help, they needed support, they needed more help on either, understanding that process. So I actually use my quizzes as a tool. It's used as a tool. My policies are also used as a tool. So each time we do any kind of training, we have like I say, I put theory to test. I put tests in place for people. I mean, not physical tests, but like I'll just say, I'll ask a random question, but it will be subconsciously asked. So the person doesn't know why I'm asking it, but it's for me to know how current their knowledge is, and then where I need to support this member of staff. Because what the biggest fear here is, Mel, and honestly, if you have a good relationship with your team, they will communicate this to you, and they will say, we don't speak up, or we don't say something because we are in fear of losing our job. So when they have a safe space, and when they feel secure, that's when they will communicate to you. And I've seen it in my practice. I've seen that they do come to you, and because they're safe, they'll tell you, no, Fatima, this doesn't work this way, because it's not. Actually, staff are getting really upset about this. Can we do something about it? And
Fatima, how many of those awkward conversations or the not great conversations are being had in nursery settings because our policies are not being clearly articulated? I'm saying
they're not having enough. I find when I come in as the external person, then everyone's like, this is how I feel. So that's how I know you're not communicating with each other in your setting. So
but I believe, Latoya, that the foundation of the team culture is reliant on the policy. I want to say, as a nursery leader, I am leading the team. Yeah, I'm not on the ground all the time. As you mentioned, yes, we do make time to go into the classroom, but seeing the practice from your perspective is something that I cannot do. However, we have put these policies in place to safeguard you as a professional and to safeguard the business entity. Yeah?
Yeah, I don't think people realize that enough. They're done, like we said, they're bits of paper because they're done for the legalities of opening a nursery, and then they're revised because it's compliance to revise them once a year. But as we said, they're not embedded into the system, but they are your foundation. They literally are your ethos, your vision, your mission. Everything is within your policies and procedures, and it gives you a ground. Even with dealing with staff members, dealing with parents, and just understanding that. And I speak strongly this with owners because they sometimes lose disconnect with their nursery, or they feel that they're not connected anymore. I'm like, yeah, but what does your nursery look like? What does that mean? Because anybody, you now employ a new manager, they're reading your policies. That's your vision. That's your how you want your nursery to look. If you don't have that, then they're coming in with their perspective, and then everybody's making up their own perspective. And that's genuinely what I see. So I go into it, each classroom is meant to be managed differently because of personality.
I agree.
But it shouldn't be managed different under quality.
Exactly. And,
So
that's
the
where the
problem.
policies come into play.
Yeah.
Now, I do a training for level 3 students, and you've dealt with level 5 students. And the first module for the level 3 students is for them to go out and find these safeguarding policies. And very often...
Some of them don't know where they are, do they, Mel?
Fatima,
Yes, they've never seen it.
my heart hurts because A, they've never accessed these policies, and B, if they are volunteering in a site, those managers are unwilling to share those policies with them.
But I don't know why, Mel, because if you go onto a UK website, okay, because it's a mandatory requirement from Ofsted and the government, every single nursery actually puts it on their websites, so everybody can access it. Policies are not to be gatekept. They're supposed to be given to everybody. They're not. Why would you hide your policies? I want to know that from people, and I want that answer. Why would you hide your policies? You don't need to. You can give it to your staff. Should be able to access that policy, know exactly where those policies are.
Yeah.
Your parents should be able to. Any stakeholder of your environment, because we're an environment where we safeguard. We're an environment where we care. That should be public knowledge or people knowledge.
It's like Latoya is saying, the policies form the foundation of the nursery culture.
Absolutely.
You are communicating what are our values. When you've got a policy in place that says, these are our ratios, these are the qualifications we require when we employ teams, this is the job descriptions that we disseminate amongst our teams. You are communicating the level of quality that exists in your team. And in addition to that, you're communicating the procedures.
Yes, processes.
The process.
It's a process. It's all a process.
Nursery operates.
Yes.
So let's not gatekeep our nursery school policies.
Yes, absolutely.
Let's be sharing them openly.
I
with our
openly share them.
stakeholders.
People pay money for people to do policies. I've actually stopped charging to make policies for people, Mel, because I actually say, and I know on a business perspective, it might not work for a lot of people, but for me, I believe that I can give you a template. Okay, so for your nursery, I can say, hey, Mel, these are the templates in red writing. I've written where you can insert your specific nursery's needs, because all policies have more or less similar stuff, and there's certain things that I've put in place. If you have an outdoor area, maybe you might need this, this, and this. If you don't have an outdoor area,
personalize your
exactly.
Your
so you personalize your own policies. So I've actually stopped charging for making policies for people, or even if a leader came to me and said, "How do you write a policy?" I would say, "Here, these are a few examples." I'm not charging for that because it's ridiculous. I feel, in my point, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't write.
So I feel like it's really important that
policies for someone, but I would have
because
a
you
session where I sat with them and walked them through it.
Yes.
You know, where I actually gave them the
I
understanding
review
of
policies. So
Yes.
we do, again, in August is very busy for me at that time because people want to review it. And then I go through and say, these are the points that you are missing. Now, how do you do these in your
Mhm.
nursery? So I will read them, and
Same.
then they have
But
to go away.
I'd also go as far as saying, before I help you to review your policies, review them with your team.
Yes.
Yes.
And are you even following your policies,
You
first
know,
of all?
it would
Like,
be
I'll
evident
help
when
you.
Yeah, it would be evident if you review those policies with your team to see what's working. Because from us, as an outside perspective, what we're going to bring you is compliance. We cannot bring the nitty-gritty of what's actually happening on your site. We cannot bring that
Because
to
we
your
don't know
policies.
that. We haven't worked with them enough time to give them that information. So they know their environment the best. So they would be able to process these processes the best. And that's what I mean. It's like policies. The word, when it comes to policies, everybody's like, oh, policies, piece of paper, a whole bunch of jargon or some illegality. But that's what they think of policy. But policies are not supposed to be thought of in that way at all. They're supposed to be lived in your environment. You're supposed to bring them to life, either through your practices in your classroom, either through your practices in your environment. Your training, they're supposed to come to life. And that's what's really, really important.
I'll say some other gaps as well is your introduction in staff with the policies, because that period can sometimes, depending on if your nursery's under short staffed, people don't get to read the policies and procedures before they even start. And then in between as well, like we said about staff having access to it, sometimes you give them the policies. I remember working with a nursery, it was last summer actually, and this staff member, I had to, every time I visited the nursery, right, have you read that policy? No, I haven't had time. What do you mean you do not have time?
Accountability is important, isn't it?
So again, following through to make sure they've actually done it, because it's all well printing off something and saying, right, read this policy.
Latoya, it can be overwhelming. And the nursery setting operates from 8 a.m., 7:30 a.m. until 6 p.m. every day. It's a long day for everyone, right? Yes, we're all working our shifts and all the rest of it. Help us to practically decimate these policies to our teams, make the time to embed it into our culture, and actually allow a space for our teams to be able to give reflective feedback. We're relying on you. How is this going to be possible in the setting? Because it is overwhelming. The time doesn't always necessarily exist. I'm not defending that, because if we're saying that we're an entity that is caring for children, safeguarding is unequivocally a foundation. Yes. So how do we practically help our teams?
First, use the 365 days in the year. That's the first and foremost. Do not cram everything into it. It's not going to happen. Then decipher between the one that everyone would say is boring and the most draining, which is the most important, is safeguarding, because
I agree.
that's a session that you try to make as fun as possible, as lighthearted, but
it can't be.
It's factual.
It's very
factual.
It's content laden.
So that's the one you would leave until maybe August, because right, everybody's brand that. The other stuff, we talk about child behavior and things like that, getting practical. Now we're talking about what strategies we use. Okay, get your staff to make your calm boxes, make your this, get them practically involved in that. So then they realize the resources they are using. Don't just give them stuff, get them involved, and you guys go figure it out and come back with some ideas that you have, again, implementing it. Risk assessments, that should be done. Go around, right, today you're me. You do a walk around the nursery and tell me the risk assessments, and then come back and give me your feedback. And again, I used to do all of this with my staff, and sometimes I'm like, you put my eyes on. Don't want your classroom eyes. I want your management eyes, to get them to think even deeper.
This is a beautiful reflective opportunity.
Yeah.
So role swap. Role swap is really important.
Yes.
And it's fun. It's so much fun,
Yes,
Mel.
but
I've done it before.
They have an insight into what the manager's
Yes.
job role actually is.
And it works amazingly. It works. You identify those that really in tune, because you're like, okay, I can work with you and I can strengthen you up. Because there's some that are really in tune and who want it. Great. And I give them that opportunity. And then it's just, again, the gain respect, because then they realize you are wearing a lot of hats. Now, from when they're in the classroom, they just see you in the office, not doing much, right? Answering a phone here and there, and then you pop into the classroom. How come you haven't? And then they just say, "Oh, you're not doing it." They don't see the emails, 100 emails,
the
the
weight
phone
you're
calls.
carrying.
They don't.
Or the
So,
responsibility.
Yeah, so
It's a
role
huge
swapping
responsibility.
is one of my biggest things that I give to. I obviously depend on their level and their capacity, but I try and do it with everybody. Again, you have 365 days. You don't need to do it all in January because I've got appraisals next month. Spread it throughout the year. Even plan your staffing. Right, I'm going to plan this for you, plan that for you across the whole year.
And it's not one size fits all either,
Yeah.
because there might be some staff who might need this training or this support, where other staff actually just get on. So instead of getting everybody in one room and some people falling asleep, because I'm ADHD, so it actually happens to me quite often. When somebody talks at me about something, I actually start zoning out. So for me, I place people in a place where, if you really interest me and I'm listening to your stuff, that means that you're my person, okay? Not necessarily putting other people in a bad light, but it's just me personally. This is how I feel. So I think that we all learn differently, and taking everybody's learning styles as well, as a trainer myself. And I see that learning styles are very important to consider, because some people are really good with writing and listening and taking that on board and taking notes, and they'll have a whole book full of stuff. And then some people are just listening and not writing anything down, but they're absorbing the information.
And then when you give them the mic and say, right, tell me your thoughts, it wills. Well.
So it's really important. And another thing that's really important, and I didn't want to miss in this session, was that blame game, right? Policies and procedures. So if you have policies and procedures in place and you haven't given them to your staff in a way where they're going to understand them, and then they make the mistakes in the classroom or whatever, the blame game comes pretty quickly, right? But you're not, and I see that so often, guys, when I go into nurseries, I see the blame game. It's always, oh, it's her fault, she did this, and we've given them the policy, they've signed it. So when I actually speak to the member of staff saying, you've had this issue in your classroom, and could you tell me, you signed a policy, so did you understand that policy or process? And she was like, no, miss, we just got told to read this. I tried to read it, and then I thought if I didn't sign it, I wouldn't have a job. Okay, so again, the fear factor, blame game. Give respect to your staff enough to let them have the understanding of what you're trying to portray. Again,
can I also say, I hear you, but can I put this back on the staff? Can I say, can you take responsibility for the job that you've signed on for? Can you take responsibility that actually we are issuing you a template of how to execute the job that you've signed on for through our policies and procedures?
I know, but sometimes that doesn't.
The onus then is for you to understand it and to execute as per directive.
And if you don't, and that's the point. If you don't understand, they have that fear of going back and talking about it. So are you creating that safe environment, though?
Not all of them, though. Not all of them have fear. Some of them is lazy. We can be honest. Some of them are lazy. They think they clock in and they clock out, and they don't think I have to do any additional research or
professional development.
And they just,
but again,
because they wait for that blame.
But again, that's on the leadership. If the leadership should have things in place strategically in order to say you are accountable. You have a responsibility. Okay, I know you. If you want to be lazy, you could be lazy as much as you want, but in this environment, there's accountability. There's responsibility. We work with children, not a can of Coke. Okay, we're not working for Coca-Cola factory. We're working for a nursery environment where real human beings are in our care.
Duty of care.
So duty of care is for every single person across the board, Mel. Because when I go to some nurseries, they tell I actually hear, oh, it's not my job. No, it is. If you are coming through these doors and you're sitting even at the front desk, or even if you have a mop in your hand, I'm so sorry. It's a duty of care is for every single human being that walks into this environment.
I think
for these children.
Every nursery I've worked with, that's a culture that I have to bring in.
Yes.
So it's like observations. I'm like, everybody should be in that classroom doing observations, not just down to the class
Yeah.
teacher, because that teacher's been off for a week. Who else is? So involving everybody. An incident happens, everyone should know how to fill in an incident report and report. So
Teamwork.
that culture of, it doesn't matter what position you're at, you need to have a level of, and if you don't understand, then you ask the next person to support you. But everybody should be taught how to do it, which comes back to making sure they are taught in the first place and following through, and have the opportunity to, because sometimes the teacher will be like, I'll just do it because it's quicker. Well, you're not helping your team, you're not building that culture. And the same with the managers. Oh, I'll just do it because it's quicker, because you know, you have to let everybody have the opportunity and the exposure.
And like coming back to Mel as well, when she said, I am giving you this, execute it. If you don't understand it, come back. And then also help others, deliver what you know to other people. Like send up your ideas to your teachers or your whatever you're doing in your classroom. We're not ordering our teaching assistants to do so. We're a team. You should be working together. So if you are working on a child and their behavior, or the classroom behavior, or the management of the classroom behavior, it should be done together as a team. It doesn't work from one person. So even the support in the classroom shouldn't be waiting for the teacher to execute things, right?
These are written again in your policies. It's written in your job description. Do you get what I'm saying? So this is about information, Fatima.
But also they come from different environments, Mel.
But the culture is going to be dictated in what you've put down in the policies. I'm a very black and white kind of thinker. Excuse me for that. But I like to know that I've given you this information. We've spent time in the first 3-6 months of you being inducted into the nursery setting. We've spent time. We've done the trainings. We've brought in the external providers. We've given you team building sessions and all the rest of it. I would like to know that you will articulate and execute what we've put down on paper. I want 100%. To put that back to the
No, but 100%. So if you put it in that way, and they've had a good amount of time that you have given all this process and information to them, and then they're not executing it, that's a problem, Mel.
Yes.
Okay, that's a huge problem.
On the other side, as an employee, when I was an employee, listen, my policies and procedures and my handbook was my Bible.
Yes.
Because on the flip side, when something does happen, I'm like, it states in your policy. So again, knowing it is knowledge for yourself.
Yes.
So you have to it's a benefit to you.
Absolutely.
When anything does happen and
you
reflect
to the policy.
Reflect back. So in that sense, nobody could tell me anything because I
challenge it.
Yeah, you can
challenge it,
and that's where we eliminate this culture of blaming one another. We go back to the policy and we say, what does the policy say? And if it's not clearly articulated in the policy, it's a moment for the manager to reflect.
Yes.
And see the opportunity. We need to write this now. We need to reflect on this because somewhere in this policy, there's a misunderstanding between what's written and what's being currently executed. So it's a work in progress all the time.
100%.
This is why people have like battles with staff doing the extra curriculum or working at extra Saturday because it's not in your contract, it's not in your policies and procedures, it's no expectation of that. So now when you're like, well, I need you to do a training, but I don't need to.
Yes.
Because it's not stated anywhere, right?
Yes.
So again, making sure that your expectations are very clear.
Yes.
Are very clearly articulated in your policies and procedures.
Yes. Yes, Mel.
If I'm going to constantly be communicating my expectation to you, this is a verbal conversation. Like you're saying, Fatima, the day is very busy. Very busy.
It's exhausting, right?
I'm not always going to retain what you're saying. And sometimes it does feel like the manager is talking at you. Right? So you do switch off and you're just like, oh, there she goes again. So you didn't hear that teaching moment. You were not present for that teaching moment. And so off you go and tomorrow you do the very same thing. And now we're beyond a verbal warning. Now we're actually going to give you a written warning and we're actually having this
and that's also
That's
also a sad culture to have, right? But we have to put this in place. I did have a member of staff once come up to me and say, tell me about the warning. And he was like, why do we have these warning systems in place? Because we want accountability, right? responsibility for these children that are in our care, and even the people around you. So this is why we have it. And if you understand it and get less offended by them, you will understand that when we give you a warning, in the warning section as well, and I feel like the name does need to be changed instead of warning something else.
A caution,
Or a development plan. So I used to have a development plan for anybody that had the problems or issues of not following the policies and procedures, and we used to have a development plan for them. And in the development plan, it was like having an IEP or individual development plan for children. So this is where I came in, and I thought to myself, what are we going to do to make this better? And it was an individual, and we called it an individual development plan. And we said, this is our development plan. This is the time frame that we're going to look at it. This person's in charge of it. They're going to help and support you. They're your support person. And then even if then when that doesn't work, Mel, you have to get rid of that human being. Seriously. Because it just feels...
I see a dual opportunity here. Because Latoya mentioned earlier that we do performance reviews. So this IEP, your individual learning plan for your team members, form part of that.
Yes.
And so we look at what do we plan for, what do we budget for in the coming year for professional
and that
development.
Prevents, warning letters just given out as tickets. Because I've gone to nurseries as well, and that person's got 10 written warning letters.
No.
But we don't.
It's late.
But there's also there should also be a policy for warnings. How many warnings you can give out?
And again, no support was provided or no direction was provided. So you're constantly going to keep giving out warning letters.
But that, Latoya, also informs the culture.
Yeah.
That evolves. If you're just giving out written warnings and you're not spending
it's
time
fear-mongering.
to actually, it's
fear-mongering your
staff. You're
But
not building your team.
anymore.
It doesn't mean
It's
anything.
like a small child. When you keep putting them in a corner, when they do something wrong, they actually start walking to that corner themselves, don't they?
Yes.
Because they know that that's what's going to happen. So it's not going to mean anything to them.
Yeah.
So communication, development, and support is really important.
And follow through.
And follow through, 100% follow through. And then if it doesn't work, like you said, if they're not taking accountability, then you have to, there's ways, right? Then you proceed on to like, you're not the best fit for our environment. Okay? It's as easy as that.
You said, let's put it into policy. Let's go back to our HR policy and then say, these are the steps that will be followed for disciplinary action. First, we will have a conversation. Next, we will have a verbal warning. Next, we will have a written warning. Then we will have a final written warning, which leads to termination. These things need to be written. These things need to be articulated to the staff so they have an understanding, you have an understanding, and this is the culture of the nursery school.
And I just want to add quickly, using tools. So, for example, there's apps out there that you can have that sends it automatically to your staff, and it automatically identifies that they've read and signed it, acknowledgement. So keeping your records, or for example, in the WhatsApp group, we used to one of the activities we used to do, which my staff absolutely love, we used to create on quiet days these short videos. So for example, it could be nappy in the nappy changing room. We used to make these videos when the staff member changing the dolly, and then it would be identify all the things that what was supposed to happen, what was missed. And they loved it. And
Practice.
It would be like, they didn't put gloves on, they didn't do this, but it made the chat interactive and engaging. So again, using your tools, that's a WhatsApp, make it fun a little bit. So it's not just writing and reading a paper.
No, it's actually
very creative.
And that's what I said before. You live your policies in your environment. You live them through many different ways and portals. And it could be, and policies being lived are seen in so many different ways in your environment. So it's not just a piece of paper. It's everything. Yeah, right. It's your whole process. And also I believe that by pressuring staff and thinking everything should be perfect is not how you build your teams, right? You build your teams on kindness. You build your teams on trust. You build your teams on support, fun, and laughter. You know, all of these things together. So bring that to your policies, right? Bring your policies to life through all of these things, which is really important. So your staff are trained quite well. Your staff know their stuff. And I get it very often, Mel, when a member of my staff goes to a different place or a different environment, I actually get feedback to say, we didn't have to do hardly any training. They asked us questions. And I was like,
Yes. That's a reflection on your
Yes.
culture.
Mm.
Where
And
they
it's
come
because,
from.
and I never had that before. I never had it from the beginning. I learned this.
Mm.
I learned all of this. It didn't just come to me and automatically it was brilliant. And it wasn't perfect. It was never perfect.
We're
Far
not
from
looking
it.
for perfect.
Right?
I say
Far
this.
from
We're not
it.
looking for perfect. We are looking for a level of excellence. And this aspiration needs to exist amongst every member
Yeah.
of our team. And so the role of the leader, of the manager is so profound, Fatima, in that we carry the culture. We articulate the
100%
culture.
right.
Very often with my team, I say to them, you behave so badly towards each other. It's a bad reflection on me because I don't behave like this towards you. I don't treat you like this. So why do you treat each other like this?
Let's change that.
Let's change that. So again, for the managers, for the leaders that are listening in this morning, they need to understand that the culture of the team resides with them. The policies and procedures, as much as they are written by them, needs to include the teams. We need to bring the teams on board to write the procedures, to reflect on the procedures, and that these policies are not a one-off. They are continuous.
It's continuous.
It's a continuous process. It's a work in progress throughout the year. It's been a fantastic conversation. I think it's going to be so
we can keep
valuable
going on, can't we?
for the teams out there. Last words, ladies.
Again, I think I'll just stick with the team and culture. I think go away, review, and reflect how you're currently doing it, and then think about planning ahead. We often use this plan ahead, like what are you going to do differently? And don't just reflect on your own opinion. Again, start from now. Get your team involved. How we deliver policies now? What does it help you? Does it not? So go away and go give a review to your staff and let them give you feedback. So start as you mean to go on, and then plan ahead.
Thank you. Love that.
Yeah.
Fatima?
And everything that Latoya said, and yes, how many times do you when you can give surveys to parents, and because it might build your business or change things, but do you give those surveys to your members of staff? Do you let their ideas come into your ideas and then collate them together? Because as a team, policies and procedures is all about teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work. I say that, and then it might be such a cliche thing, but it does make the dream work.
Absolutely.
And when you have when you deliver or when you articulate these policies and procedures, and you take so much time in writing them, you should also understand them yourself. And then when you give them out to your staff, that they're all getting them in the right way as well. Like I said, we're all different types of learners. So we should find out what kind of learners our members of staff are. It's your duty to do that. So that's really, really important. Leaders have a lot of responsibility, and this is one of their main responsibilities is to make sure that these policies and procedures are articulated in the correct manner. And like you said, everybody is accountable and they're responsible to deliver these policies and procedures.
Thank you. A valuable conversation right here on Let's Talk Earlier. Catch us on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. See you next time.